Welcome to the Clark Connection podcast, where we explore the art of leadership, personal growth, and transformative power of community. In this episode, I'm joined by Josh Barton, a man whose passion for helping others find freedom from addiction is matched only by his dedication to leadership and integrity. Today, we dive deep into the journey of Home of Grace, a faith-based recovery program that has impacted over 35,000 lives and uncovered the lessons of leadership, dealing with compassion, making tough calls, and building a legacy that matters. Stay tuned. This conversation might just change the way you see leadership and second chances. But before we jump into today's episode, I want to take a quick second to give a shout out to our sponsors who make this happen. And so, first up, a huge thank you to our premier sponsor, Vicky with Hubbard Flooring Studios. Vicky and her team are masters at transforming spaces, laying down foundations of beauty and strength. Just like the foundations we build in leadership, whether you're looking into refreshing your home or reimagining your workspace, Hubbard Flooring Studio has you covered from the ground up. You can visit them at 11880 Boland Avenue in Baton Rouge, or give them a call at 225-924-1582, or explore their amazing work at hubbardflooringstudio.com. Remember, great leadership starts with a strong foundation, and Vicky and her team know exactly how to set that place. And look, all of their information, it's in the bio, down in the description as well. Another quick shout out for our amazing sponsors as well. And we've got Wayne with 7K Metal for Gold and Silver, your trusted source for securing gold and silver. Then we've got Bobby with the Comfy Quest LLC, your destination for holistic healing and craniosacral therapy. Andrew with Automate Integrate Professional Services, bringing ease and efficiency to your business. Joseph with Landscape King, creating beautiful outdoor spaces 1 yard at a time. And C&J Embroidery, custom designs that make your brand pop. We're so grateful for their support. And if you're looking for their services, be sure to check them out. Tell them Coach Clark sent you, and all of their information, it's down below. Also, if you're looking to connect with me, this could be whether you need leadership training for yourself or your organization, hit me up. I would love to help you dive deeper and explore further. All of my contact information, it's listed below. And look, just make sure you click like, subscribe, and follow. Share this episode with somebody else, or visit me on my website. So many ways for us to connect. Now, quick introduction to my friend Josh Barton. He is the executive director of Home of Grace Ministries. And like I said earlier, that is a faith-based organization that helps people overcome addictions. He's been married for 22 years now and is the father of 3. And so let's go ahead, roll that intro footage, and bring on Josh. This is the Clark Connection Podcast, your weekly dose of inspiration and power. We'll dive deep into the stories and strategies that ignite personal growth and entrepreneurial fire. Join us as we empower you to take control, level up your leadership, and build the life you deserve. Get ready to rise, to thrive, and to finally become the leader of your own destiny. Let's go. And Josh, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me, Aaron. Glad to be here.
No, pleasure's all mine. And so I know we went through and just kind of listed several different things, talking about your resume, that leadership qualities, but I kind of want to jump into that what is Home of Grace? I talked about it just a little, but let's dive into that a little bit more.
So Home of Grace is a faith-based addiction recovery program. Actually, my grandfather started it 60 years ago. We have a 120-bed men's facility in Van Cleve, and we have a 40-bed women's facility in Gaucher that are about 15 miles apart. We have our primary program is a 3-month addiction recovery program with individual counseling, group counseling, classroom instruction, workshops. But we also have a 30-day program, a 60-day program, and a longer 6-month or an additional 3-month program for those that need to stay a little bit longer. But we've had over 35,000 men and women through our program now. And very cool aspect is quite a few of them have actually started their own recovery programs in different parts of the country now. So that's a high level view of Home of Grace.
No, that's cool. And And so I know you told me that we've gotten to know each other through motocross and everything
Right.
else, that our sons raced together. And so I didn't even realize that you had other people that you've helped set up that recovery organization. So I'm assuming, I didn't even think to ask this as before till now. Like, I'm assuming you get people from all around the United States.
Oh, yes. So 21 states last year alone. So if you have 500, 600 people a year on average that come through your program from all over the country. In fact, your area, the Baton Rouge area, is probably 25% of our population group at any given time. And in fact, Opelousas, Louisiana, there's a 180 bed recovery program ran by one of our alumni in Opelousas, Louisiana. Uh, so, yeah, they're all over. We've helped last year or year before last, we started Valley of Grace in Kokomo, Indiana from an alumni. So they're all over.
No, that's cool. And I love that aspect of, not only are you helping people, because, hey, who doesn't know somebody that isn't struggling with addiction of any type right there, but that going and helping, and then they, you know what, I'll help you guys get started, because, man, that is cool.
Very
That is
cool.
cool. I did not realize, but and that falls right in my philosophy of, as a leader, you should help to create other leaders that then go on and start creating and helping other
Right.
people. Dude, awesome stuff. Awesome
Some of them
stuff.
may do it better than us, which is great.
Well, now, I was going to say, and we talk about, I can't remember what that, which asked the coach. Caitlin had asked me that. She's, talked about the importance of making sure you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. And if you
Yes.
are, find a new room.
Right.
And so always learning and growing to try to figure out how you can do it better, because somebody may do it better and you can apply that wherever. No, and that's cool, man. And so, and I know you probably can't mention names, so I don't want you to mention names, but who would you say is or there's got to be somebody whose story that really just sticks out? Like, hey, this person was probably the most messed up person I've seen come in that you helped.
Yeah, I share this. Yeah, I share this story from time to time. His name was Chuck Fayard. He's passed away now, but when Chuck came to the Home of Grace, he had. Let me first start off by giving the context to this. My grandfather started Home of Grace. I grew up out here. I've been since I was a toddler hanging out with men and women in addiction my whole life. I'm 46 years old. So I've seen a lot to compare this one guy to give you an idea of what I'm dealing with. So when this guy came into Home of Grace, he did not have a single vein left in his body that he could shoot up. Like every vein, if you look through his arms, from the end of his arm all the way up would just be a line of scabs because he had tried to shoot up so many times. It would take him 3 or 4 times to try to shoot up for one to take because he couldn't find a vein, legs, arms, everything. So he was at the Home of Grace about, I don't know, 5, 6 days. Every day he was battling something. And so finally he just decided to leave. And, but I got to know the guy pretty well while he was here. And so I just had a heart for him. So I called to check on him. I'd call to check on him a little bit. And, so about a week later, I called him after he got home. I said, "How you doing, Chuck?" He said, "Man, I'm doing a lot better, man. I'm just smoking crack. I'm not messing with any needles." I said, "Oh my goodness gracious." And that was an honest goodness answer for him. Just smoking crack, not messing with needles. Two, 2 weeks later, he tried to shoot something up and it messed him up. And he ended up in the hospital in Biloxi. So I go to visit him in the hospital a couple of days after this. And when I showed up at the hospital, they said he left and he took our equipment. Oh my gosh. So I went to his house and guy said, "Man, we got to go back to the hospital and get that taken out." He said, he was trying to skirt it. I said, "They're going to send the police after their equipment." He said, "Well, let's go." So when they brought him back to the hospital, he thought he just had a needle right here in his chest, but they had to run a PICC line to his heart because they could not find a vein anywhere in his body. And so when they took those stitches, and by the way, they took those stitches out and pulled out that straw looking thing out of his chest, stitched it back up. His eyes got about this big around, and he leaned over to me and said, "Dude, I tried to shoot cocaine through that thing twice and that didn't work. I think he didn't have the saline to push it through or it would have killed him. So anyway, we got him straightened up. He came back to the home of grace. Every week was a different, I mean, every day was a challenge with him at first. So his first day, I can't take anymore. I got to leave. So what's going on, Chuck? He said, I'll never be able to forgive my, and he started naming family members or things. I can't forgive them this. So we would work through that, and it was like a layer of an onion would peel off, and you would see him bright in a good spot. And the next day, I gotta leave. I can't. And it was somebody new. I can't let this go. And you'd work through that, and a layer would come off. And then it ultimately worked down to he had a son that started dealing with addiction, and he felt it was his fault as an adult. And he's like, I'll never be able to forgive myself. Anyway, went through all that, radically changed his life. His dad, who he had not spoken with in 8 years, lived next door to him. He ended up moving in to take care of his dad, or moved his dad in to take care of him in his latter days. His drug dealer came to know the Lord, came to the home of grace, or got his life changed. So Chuck was one of the most and by the way, he was the crack house. His house was the crack house. Our counseling team went over there and made up his house, painted it up, fixed it up. And so, yeah, Chuck Fayard from Gulfport, Mississippi was one of the most radical transformation stories. And I'm just hitting the highlights of some of those. I got to share that, by the way, at his court in front of the judge about the fact that he said, I'm doing great. I'm just smoking crack. I'm not messing with any needles. And for him, that was a significant improvement initially.
Well, and I mean, while we kind of giggle about that, knowing that it's not really much better, but for him, knowing that, it's one that I had a friend tell me, whenever you're doing something, celebrate the wins,
Right.
celebrate
Yeah.
any of the good stuff. And,
Right.
good on him for at least like, hey, I'm trying to get better. Oh man, but that's cool. That is cool. I'm sure you see more than just that and wild seeing the veins and that everything else. But yeah, I knew that since we've been friends now, um, I was like, eventually I'm going to get Josh on the show, like, because you're leading some people through some very low lows.
Yeah. One of our one of our staff members liked to say, nobody comes to the home of grace because they were singing too loud in the choir. So every person that comes out here has an adventure. And but the really cool thing is when you deal with people that battle addiction, there's a common denominator with many of them, that they're very driven, passionate people. And so, I mean, if you think about the workforce, your best painters, some of your best business guys, are usually can have some type of a compulsiveness to them. That addiction can be a big part of that. And so we get to work with some of the brightest, best minds in any. What we have a saying that you've got to be a pretty smart person to afford a $400 or $500 a day habit with no job. So that's what these guys have to do on a daily basis, is come up with a new way to make something work. And so when you can get that intelligence and drive pointed in the right direction, they do amazing things. And that's what we get to be a part of.
Yeah, and that's awesome. That's awesome being able to know that, hey, I can help. As somebody just that you're going this way, let me go back this way, and seeing that transformation, that change come on. Definitely a God thing. It's not a really anything that Josh is doing, but just being willing.
Yeah, we have a big plaque thing in the back of our chapel that says where miracles happen. And I always say, in spite of us, God, God's always, there's some amazing miracles that happen out here on a regular basis, from people that are served divorce papers when they get here. A year later, they get married and remarried in our chapel. Um, it's like their spouses want to watch them for a year to make sure that things have changed. And guys that go from hopeless legal situations and just health situations and watch those things get restored and changed is just it never gets old.
No, it doesn't. It's kind of one of the things that I say that with Delta College and working there, and I love that because I often call us last chance you. Um, that because most of our students are in the same boat. They've tried and failed so many times on their own, that we help them through. And so when like we just recently had a graduation, which is I tell them my second favorite day of the whole thing, and they're like, "Well, when's the first?" And I'm like, "The day I hear you got a job, because that's why you came to me. That was that you got a job." And so I know how hard it is, and to see that, and it's all some days it's kind of like dealing what seriously, we're dealing with this again. Like, come on, man, it's the same issue, but to them, it's something they weren't equipped to deal with on their
Right.
own. So, dude, uh,
Yeah.
absolutely phenomenal.
I think a lot
So,
of times along that line, I think when I'm trying to help somebody and they sometimes keep making different mistakes, I think the Lord looks at me the same way. I was like, I got to keep helping John here, even though he keeps mistaking, because God's got to be looking at me saying, you keep messing up, bonehead. So, okay, I'll keep helping him if you keep helping me.
I'm glad he's only looking at you and not me, because I mean, because I know I'm not making hardly
Right.
any mistakes.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like, if you believe that, I got some desert land I want to sell all of you guys in
Right.
Thibodaux, Louisiana, at
Mhm.
million acres. I'll sell it 50 cents an acre just today only. Today only. No, it is. And you get to, dude, it just, there's so many cool things that we could go off, but seeing, and and I hate to say used to it, but you start to learn, hey, I had this situation with Mary, and so now I can apply it to Jane, or I had this one with Tom, and this one could work in that one situation. All the cool things that you get to learn and do right there. Um, So, guys, if you've enjoyed what you heard so far, make sure that you like, subscribe, follow, do all the things. That way we can continue to bring on great guests like Josh. And so, Josh, kind of want to switch gears a little bit. One that I'd asked you before was talking about, that one experience that helped shape you as a leader. And you talked about, lost 20 plus pounds and all that. Um, that and both being I thought this would be a cool topic for both of us, that both being third generation workers in a family business. So let's talk. Can we that let's move into that, that learning from that valley.
Sure. So I want to say, first of all, for me, before the valley came, um, one unique thing that was helpful for me is I felt like, and I don't know of another way to say it other than just be, I feel like the Lord started guiding me with vision for the organization. And so I started having big picture vision and ideas that I felt like that we needed to do for the Home of Grace, which being third generation, I think I didn't realize it at the time, but it was very important. I feel like that I had my own sense of vision and direction for the organization. It wasn't something that was just, I wasn't just following back in the same path trail that my grandfather and my father had. And even though, and I was very grateful and blessed to have two wonderful, a parent and a grandparent that was great examples of great leadership. They were never ones that they were very encouraging, but my grandfather used to like to give us little notes that would say, for suggestions only, but you knew that it would be a great suggestion or idea, but if you didn't follow it, he was not going to hold that against you. He was very just encouraging. So, but for me, again, I felt like I was able to start having a clear vision, a big vision for the organization that got me fired up and excited about it. Pieces started to come together for that. And then, like I talked about, I went through about, I guess, 3 to 6 months of the most difficult times of my life. The Home of Grace was running $30,000 to $50,000 a month backwards. Um, we had some staffing challenges. When I say challenges, the challenge that I was really dealing with is I had some leadership staff that were good people, but they weren't the right people in the right place for us. And so, as a leader, it's easy sometimes to just fire somebody, let somebody go that is being a pain in the rear end, or they're not doing their job well. But if you've got someone that's really trying and it's been with you for a long time, it is a lot harder to make a hard call when you know that they're trying, but they're just not the right fit for the role. And I'm going to take a little sidetrack on this. That there was a gentleman that was president of a very successful oil company in Texas. And when I was going through this struggle and I was sharing with him, he started walking me through, and one of the leaders that I had with me that I was really wrestling with, because he was a great guy that was trying and he just didn't have what we needed for that leadership role. And so the president of this oil company said, "Well, let me ask you something." He said, "You're having to work around him to get things done, right?" I said, "Yeah." "Those below him are having to kind of work around him some to get things done, right?" "Yeah." "So you think he's probably recognizing that he's frustrated with it?" "Yeah." So this was the key thing. He said, "Do you think you may be holding him back for where God wants him to be?" And that put a different perspective on it for me, that look, if he's not in the right place, you could be holding him back from a place that he should thrive. And so when I had to make that call, that was part of that time. Again, cash flow negative, hard decisions made. Um, at the end of that journey, though, uh, making that tough call, that guy didn't take it real well to begin with. But I'll say that months later, he became the senior pastor of a great church here on the Gulf Coast. He and I had a great reconciliation after that, that he felt like that was the right call, but he just couldn't feel it or see it at the time. Um, as soon as and I shared this with you earlier, though, that in the midst of all of that pressure cooker that I was in, I feel like for me, the Lord just said, "Josh, this is my organization, not yours." Basically, I know you're third generation and you feel like you've got to keep, you know, all the pressures on your shoulders to hold up your dad or your grandfather's legacy and all those things. That I wouldn't have said that, but sometimes internally you're still trying to make them proud and do, great things. But when I felt like the Lord said, "This is not your ministry, it's mine. If it falls apart tomorrow, it was never yours to begin with." And it was like, as soon as that revelation sort of came to me, it's like the wind stopped, the waves settled, the organization righted itself, and we came right on through it. And so I just felt like that was a learning season that I needed to go through and weather. Uh, it gave me a lot of self confidence. I say self confidence, but um, to make hard calls. It made it a lot easier to make hard calls, letting people, there's a lot of people I've had to let go over 20 something years of working in ministry. If somebody's not doing what they're supposed to be doing now, it's like, man, this is a lot easier to do it in this situation than it was with a guy that was doing everything he could to try to make it and wasn't the right fit. So anyway, that was just one of the most defining moments for me, I think, in growing up in leadership.
No, I agree. And I think that's one that's the tough. Like, that was one of the toughest, I'll tell anybody, it never gets easier than letting people go. But where I've told people, with my situations and stuff like that, where I've had to do it, I often come back to, everybody says it's not personal, it's business. And then I tell them, no, everything is personal, because as an organization, you were talking about, hey, I've got 500 plus that people coming through my doors every year. I've got, I don't remember how many employees you said, but that,
Yeah, about 47, 48
yeah.
employees.
So you've got 47 people depending on you to make the right call, make the right decision, to feed their family, to pay that car note, to whatever. I was like, it's all personal, because you've got a wife and 3 children depending on you to provide for them as well. So it's, even though we all come on, it's business, not personal, but it really is personal, because there are that many people depending on us to make that right call.
And what we're doing with dealing with people with alcohol and drug issues, it's literally life or death. So making sure that they're having every opportunity to be successful literally is a life or death uh, in what we're working with.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that was while you said the story about the businessman from Texas, that just hearing that was like, all right, so how many other people have we done the same thing for where we've, like, Aaron is the one that's holding them back, not that whatever it is, they're trying their hardest. That was powerful. But then it also got me thinking, how often do we as leaders do the work around and we're really not equipping the people that are supposed to be doing that under us? We're not equipping them to do their job. So we're actually hindering them there. So it could be both ways right there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
Every circumstance is different, but absolutely.
no. And then I loved it. Trying to, like, that once you finally let go and let God.
Yes, absolutely. You know, there's so many things that just listening to that, you know, it's one of those things that, like I said before, I would have said this was his ministry. He's got it. It's not, whatever. I would have said that, over all the years. It's his ministry. But then again, when you feel like you're doing everything you can do, then you start feeling like, well, it's my responsibility to fix this. I got to fix this, and so you take on the weight of the world in order to try to fix that, and then you realize that it's outside of your control, and then everything gets straightened up when you realize that there's nothing I can do about this. This is about to hit the ditch, and he's like, "I got it. I had it all along. I just let you have to kind of wrestle with it for a minute."
Right. No, and it is. It's one that the leadership role, and we were talking about that prior too. It's one of the only places where you can be around a bunch of people and be all alone all at the same time. It's definitely that one where you feel, hey, I'm the leader, and where I'll tell people this too. I hadn't seen an NFL team that's not doing well. They go down and fire the person who's third string.
Right.
They start with the head coach.
Right. Exactly right. And we talked about this some earlier as well, that as a leader, there's a lot you wrestle with that very few people know about. And I feel like being a strong leader is making difficult calls, um, even when it affects you. Sometimes it affects you first, um, you know. And so I was grateful to have both a grandfather and a father that I saw make a lot of those hard calls that very few people knew about, but I knew about. And for them, building having integrity was at the top of their list, I think, of leadership, in the sense that you build your life and your organization around integrity. And that's something that, I mean, I've heard Warren Buffett say, I think it takes 20 years to build trust, and it takes about 5 minutes to ruin all of that. And so, that's something that, but through integrity means you make the tough calls and make tough decisions that are the right decisions, whether anybody's willing to follow or not.
I agree. I agree. I think that's one that's so important to you as the leader. Uh, I had somebody ask me, "But what would you say is your greatest strength?" And I'm like, I'll pretty much do what I tell you I'll do." And then they flipped around. What's your greatest weakness? I'll do what I told you I'm going to do.
Right. Right.
They're like, what does that mean? I'm like, well, if I told you I was going to get you 100 of these at this price, and then when I go to get those 100 at that price, and I'm going to lose $100 per one. And guess what? I told you I was going to do it at this price, so I'm going to give it to you at that price.
Yep. I feel the same way. That's something I do feel like younger entrepreneurs would be helpful for them to understand, is your word is your bond. And those things are things that will go with you for life. You will be remembered by those that you work with for the rest of your life, based on your word, how you carry yourself, and your integrity. And sometimes, you know, that doesn't necessarily feel like it pays off right on the front end. Depending on, there's people that can manipulate things and do things to try to, what I call it, you might get it in the front end, but guys will take it out of your rear end. It ends up not working out in the long run, but those are building blocks of your leadership that your team will start understanding and trusting and following, because they know that you're willing to fall on the sword, you're willing to do whatever is the right thing to do. And so those are things that it takes time uh, for others to start trusting the leadership with.
No, I couldn't agree more. And that is kind of one of the reasons that I wanted to start the podcast altogether, was to let other people. I've got a lot of friends that are entrepreneurs, leaders, and to see and let people hear the stories of how difficult it is to do what these guys and gals are doing. But then to let them know you're not alone. And finding a network of people to build and do life with, that is important for the leader, even if it's just nothing more for one day for me to pick up the phone and call and say, Josh, life is horrible. Let me tell you how horrible life is. And so I'll hear you laughing on the other side of that. And I know you're not like, it's not like, Aaron, you're so, but you're like, okay, I know what you're going through, Aaron. Come on, just get it out. All right. You good? Good. All right. Get back at it.
Yeah. It does help to come and work with a bunch of people that's dealing with drug and alcohol drug addictions, because I can walk over in our cafeteria and have lunch with a couple of guys and realize my problems are really not that big of a deal. I come back over here and feel a little bit lighter after I felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders, and see what some of those guys are doing. But it's all in perspective. You can put it in perspective.
No, it is. And it's beautiful to be able to see that and get that dose of reality, because and I think that attests to the type of leader that you are, because you want the best for not just your employees, you want the best for your customers who are there, because so you're looking, how do I make this better? And just being that, sometimes it's nothing more than them be like, no, you're doing a great job helping me. And you're like, man, I messed up this. Like, hold up, let me unroll that list of things that I've messed up today, like on the cartoons where it's like a mile long, and just hearing that simple, that thing that reaffirms that, hey, you're on the right path, man. Keep it up.
Yeah. So by the way, for us, some of the best um, changes, improvements, things that we do at our organization comes from ideas from the clients, people that's in our program, graduating our program. And I think that would relate with most any business. Your customers are the ones you really need to be listening to the most, because they're the ones that's dealing directly with your product. Uh, and so, I mean, that has been the best. Everything that I feel like some of the best things that has happened at the Home of Grace has come from notes or things that have come to me through clients in the program.
Yeah. Well, and that took me a little while to realize, when the customer's always right. Not saying that, yes, they're right about everything, but they're the ones using the product. If they say, hey, it would help us to have it this way versus that way,
Right.
I do think it is up to you, the leader, to look into it and
Of
figure out,
course.
could this be a viable option?
Mhm.
And if it is, great. If it's not, great. Ultimately, you got to make the tough decision anyway. So,
Right. Especially if you're getting a lot of feedback, though, you can start watching trends. So if you're starting to get a trend of people saying that your front desk person's not the most pleasant person to talk to, or you start getting a trend that says the food is not any good, or whatever you know, then you start realizing it's not just one person that didn't like anything you cooked ever. It's a whole bunch of, so anyway, it's trends of things that really help overall, help you to understand, what things need to be looked at or changed.
yeah. And I'll tell people too that, whenever I hear a complaint about something, now the first time I usually just all right, cool, store this off to the side. Second time, okay, maybe wrong. Third time I hear it, all right, something really is wrong with that. We got to go fix that now. Because if it took three people to come and say something to complain to me, that the other ones are thinking it too.
Absolutely. And one thing I will say too, and I love your podcast, on leadership and so many different aspects of leadership. I wrote some things down earlier too, thinking about, um, you know, first of all, is in my role, I get to meet a lot of different families from all over the place from working, coming into the Home of Grace, family members and stuff. So I've got to see a lot of different styles of leadership all over. So, a couple of notes that I felt like a good listening audience would want to hear is one is in my early years, I got to work with um, a guy that actually volunteered as our associate director, had retired, having 30,000 people work for him worldwide. And he volunteered as my associate director as a young leader. And so when I first started having people like that around me, I was learning from, but I started finding myself in some ways trying to be like some of them. And there was a lot of great things that I learned from them. But I also learned over time that everybody has their own skill sets and designed that are to be used how they're designed. And so sometimes as a young entrepreneur, start learning to have a little more confidence in your own skills, even though you want to learn from the best. And there's some things that you can cherry pick from each person, but also realize that your wiring, your makeup, your talents and gifts are different than the other CEO, the other entrepreneur over here, and to find your strengths and your uniquenesses and maximize those. So that was one thing I thought about earlier.
Yeah. No, and that brought, because I know that was a question I was asked, because we started a new segment, Ask the Coach, and somebody to ask, is there like a CEO personality? And so just hearing you, they say that again reaffirms no, there's not a specific I think, as we've talked about before, there are the 7 habits of highly effective people that every single one of those CEOs possess, but the personality types, it's completely different. Completely different.
The last thing I'll share with you along that line is my grandfather, who started the Home of Grace, would have been one of the people that you would have least thought had any type of leadership type qualities. He was born with a cleft palate, cleft lip, no roof of his mouth, felt called to preach at the age of 8, but nobody in the world could understand him but his own mom. He I could go into a whole lot of stuff on him, had the opportunity to go to college, had to work his way through college, welding on a water line at night to become a preacher. His graduating senior year of school, he met with a leading recruiting organization for missionaries and pastors. And they met with him and wanted him to read this little paragraph. And he read the paragraph. And this guy said, "What did you do growing up?" He said, "I worked in my dad's millwright company." The guy said, "You need to go back in the millwrights." He said, "No church in America will ever call you to preach. Your speech isn't good enough." Imagine praying from 8 to 21 years old, feeling led to be a preacher, and the leading recruiting organization in the country say you'll never make it as a preacher. He went back to his room and started crying, and he said, "I heard the Lord say you're still on my team." He pastored 30 something churches and started an organization that's helped over 35,000 men and women from around the world. We've actually had people from outside the country. But and when he first started the Home of Grace in Van Cleve, Mississippi, out in the woods, a group of mental health professionals got together and they laughed at and made fun of the hair-lit preacher that was going to start a place out in the woods for alcoholics. Said it'll never work. Here we are 60 years later, the largest. I think we've helped more people for longer than any other organization in the state of Mississippi. And so, anyway, I think that's another encouraging thing is that, when society and others say you don't have what it takes, you don't have the right skills, so you're not smart enough, you don't speak well enough, you don't have those things, um, they miss it a lot of times.
You're right. You're right. That if you feel God leading you to do it, you should do it, because it's His ministry, anyways, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so, as we're kind of winding down, Josh, I know one that I like to ask everybody is, what's one book that you recommend any entrepreneur or leader read?
Well, I've been thinking on that question, but the book that I read recently that I really like is called A Legacy That Lasts. Um, this was written by Trudy Cathy White. She's the daughter of the founder of Chick-fil-A,
Yeah.
Truett
Kathy.
Cathy. Yeah, Truett Cathy.
Yeah, true, Kathy.
Um,
Yeah.
so Trudy Cathy has started some great organizations. One's called Impact 360, which my daughter just went through. Her and her husband were missionaries in Brazil for 15 years. I mean, multi you know, worth multi billions of dollars, and lived in humble homes in the midst of that group. But building a legacy that lasts, whether that's talking about the people within your organization or your family, is talking about building things that matter and setting it up in a way that it can continue to grow and further. And so that's a real legacy is not just leaving cash, assets, toys. Uh, it is creating values in your staff and your employees or your family that will be seeds that are planted to your grandkids or employees long after you're gone. So I really like that book.
No, I like that right there, and that says a lot. Passing on the real legacy is the values and that you pass on, teaching your family right is right, even when nobody's doing it. Wrong is wrong when everybody's doing it. And having that right there, I think that's a excellent man. That's a excellent thing to definitely talk about. So a legacy that lasts. Um, Now what about maybe? So you said you just finished reading that one.
Right. So, a book that I read early on, probably my early 20s, maybe. Rich Dad Poor Dad was another great book for me. I know that um, it's a little bit simplistic in its nature in some ways, but the things that it taught me was understanding the difference between an asset and a liability, which sounds very funny, but a real asset is something that feeds you. A liability is something that eats you. And so when you're talking about hiring staff, when you're talking about things that you're focused on with the organization, if you kind of run everything through that filter sometimes that you make sure that you're trying to invest in things that are asset, things that can feed the organization, things that can feed you as an individual, and limit the things that are liabilities, those things that will just continue to eat you. And that could just be things that are time wasters, time suckers. And so there's a lot of value in that very simple little book, but it will teach, I think, a good foundation of entrepreneur mindsets, especially for young new entrepreneurs.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I think I told you the first time I ever read it. I think I read the first chapter, closed it, put it back on the shelf, and said, "This dude's crazy. I'm not." And I heard from a lot of other people, "You need to read that." I'm like, "No, that dude's saying that my house is a liability. It's not an asset. This dude doesn't know what he's talking about." And started researching on him more. I'm like, he's
Right.
making a lot more money than I am. Maybe I should read
Yeah,
this book.
absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of truths in that people need to understand. Along that same line, a lot of people think buying a big, nice home is a great asset. If it's eating you up with taxes, insurance, and electricity every month, you can live in a little small apartment and have a big, nice home that you're renting out. That thing's going to feed you. Now that's an asset. So anyway, that's a little glimpse into that book.
Yes, yes, and he tells some really good stories in there as well. That's definitely worth the read. And so, Josh, man, I appreciate you getting on. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, how should they reach out to you or Homo Grace?
Well, Home of Grace, our number, I think you'll have it listed up on the phone, but 228-826-5283. So many families are dealing with someone with addiction issues, and sometimes the family member is not even ready. But still, if you want to call us, ask us questions, we work with places all over the country. So sometimes, even if we're not the right fit, we can help you find the right fit. We know where there's support groups and individuals that you can talk with. So we want to be a resource for anyone that maybe having an individual that needs help, we want to be there for them. Or you can email me there. However you want to contact me, you contact me. I'd love to connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it reminded me, y'all have your own podcast as well, the Jesus Loves Addicts podcast.
It has taken off. It has really taken off. Jesus Loves Addicts. So that's my brother Clay works with our organization as well. And that's part of his brainchild, but it has really done well.
And I mean, I just listened to whatever the last one was because I forgot that y'all had it until you told me. I said, let me go listen. And it was like, wow, this is good stuff. And hey, guys, that's one you should go add it to your list of stuff to listen to. Support the local guys.
There's some great inspirational stories in that will give, if people are struggling with a family member with addiction, and it can become hopeless, it can feel hopeless and devastating. And if you watch some of those podcasts and you can see there are some real transformations, miracles that happen, they'll give them hope.
Absolutely. Well, Josh, I appreciate you hopping on. It was fun. We'll definitely have to do this again, man.
I look forward to it.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
What an inspiring conversation with Josh. We explored the incredible impact of Home of Grace and the daily miracles that are taking place and happening in the lives of those seeking recovery. And so I got a few key takeaways that I want to share with you all. And for those of you watching, I am putting this up on the screen and you should be able to see it now. And that is, integrity is the foundation of leadership. Your words matter. Recognize the potential in everyone. Like even those that are battling addiction. I talked about listening to feedback and how it's the key to continuous growth and improvement. That leadership is about making tough decisions for the greater good. And oftentimes you as the leader are the one that feels the impact first. And most of the time, the most. And then lastly, I thought this was a great point. That building a legacy means instilling values that outlive you. And before we wrap up, I want to give another shout out and huge thanks to Vicky Hubbard and the team at Hubbard Flooring Studio for sponsoring today's episode. If you're ready to upgrade your floors and elevate your space, give them a call. Or head on over to their website, hubbardflooringstudio.com. You'll be glad you did. And all that information, it's listed below. And if you're ready to go deeper into your personal growth journey, whether that's mindset, that coaching, leadership development, or unlocking your next level, connect with me at coachaclark.com or shoot me an email, aaron@coachaclark.com. All of my information is listed below. And so ultimately, leadership isn't about making the right calls. It's about serving others and embracing the journey, even when it's tough. And if this episode encouraged you to look at leadership and recovery through a new lens, share it with somebody who could use a little inspiration today. And remember, you don't need to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. So keep leading, keep growing, and keep innovating. Until next time, stay inspired and connected, and I will see you on the next episode of the Clark Connection Podcast. Thanks for listening to the Clark Connection Podcast, where my goal is to add value to you. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow the show. You can also connect with me via my website, coachaclark.com, or on all socials at coach_a_Clark. The links are in the description. Huge thanks to my sponsors, Wayne with 7K Metals, Bobby with the Comfy Quest LLC, Andrew with Automate Integrate Professional Services, Joseph with Landscape King, and Chris and Jess with C&J Embroidery. We look forward to bringing you more great content. See you next week.